Hey everybody, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to make a 5.5 by 5.5 inches, of course, triangle granny. And there are so many fun things that you can do with this shape. And of course, you can make it as big as you want to. You can hook them together. You can make a pennant, whatever you want to do. It's just a fun little pattern that I'm going to show you how to make. Now you can find the free crochet pattern down in the notes underneath this video. To make these fun triangle grannies, you're going to need some yarn, and it's a great project to use up some of your leftover worsted weight number 4 or medium weight number 4 yarns. These are all yarns that I had on hand. They're Red Heart Super Saver. I love this yarn from Hobby Lobby. I think I even have some Vanna's Choice, and so you can use any of your medium weight number 4 acrylic yarns. And guess what? You could use cotton, cotton blends, wool, whatever you want to, as long as it's a medium number 4, it'll work just fine. I'm going to use this teal here to show you. That way I'll have a rainbow of colors. We're going to be stitching today with our H hook. It's a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle to weave those ends in, and of course you'll need your scissors. All right, let's get started on our granny triangle. We're going to begin with our slip knot. We're going to chain 5. We're going to join this into a circle. So we'll take the tail of yarn, put it over our hook, and pull it through. Then we'll snug that down and tie that stay knot. Now, if you prefer to use the magic ring or magic circle on this, you certainly can. I just prefer this method for me. Put your hook in, pull up a loop, and chain 3. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. Now we're going to stitch 2 more double crochets. 1, 2. Now we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2. We're going to stitch 3 more double crochets in this chain 5 loop. 1, 2, 3, and chain 2. And you'll notice I'm stitching over this tail of yarn, and that's because I'm going to close up this hole with that tail of yarn when I'm done. All right, we're going to stitch 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and chain 2. We're going to join to that first chain 3 that counted as our first double crochet. We're going to slip stitch in the next 2 double crochets. Then we'll slip stitch in this chain 2 space and chain 3. And this is how row 1 should look. You're going to have 3 groups of 3 double crochets and 3 chain 2 spaces. All right, we're going to turn this over. We're going to gently pull on that piece of yarn, and then we can go ahead and weave that in. And I always say it has to be weaved in anyway, so we'll go ahead and take care of it now and close that hole up at the same time. There we go. All right, and we can go ahead and cut that. We don't have to worry about that. It's already weaved in, and row 1 is complete. So let's do row 2. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. We're going to stitch 2 more double crochets, 1 and 2. We're going to chain 2 and stitch 3 more double crochets in this same chain 2 space. 1, 2, 3, and we're going to chain 2. And then we'll repeat in this next chain 2 space 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and chain 2, and then 3 more double crochets in that same chain 2 space, 1, 2, and 3, and chain 2. Now we'll do this in the last chain 2 space. 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, join to our chain 3 with a slip stitch. Slip stitch in the next 2 double crochets, and then slip stitch in the chain 2 space and chain 3. And so now, I'm going to stretch them out a little so you can see the points. We have 3 double crochet, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, then chain 2, and then we repeat that around and join back to our chain 3 and slip stitch to the chain 2 space. Let's do row 3. So again, in this corner, our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and we're going to stitch 2 more double crochets. We're going to chain 2 and stitch 3 double crochets in that same chain 2 space. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2. This brings us to the chain 2 space on the side, and we're going to stitch 3 double crochets in that chain 2 space. And chain 2. Now we're at the next chain 2 space, which is a corner, so we'll stitch 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. There we go. And chain 2. So now we're to our next side, and we'll stitch 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3, and chain 2. So now we're to our last corner of our triangle, and so we're going to stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets in that same chain 2 space. Now we're to our next chain 2 space here on the side, and we'll stitch 3 double crochets. Chain 2. We'll join to our chain 3 with a slip stitch. We'll slip stitch in those next 2 double crochets, slip stitch in the chain 2 space, and chain 3. And so now for row 3, we have our 3 corners of 3 double crochet, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Then we chain 2 and have 3 double crochets in that side, and then repeat that all the way around, so we have 3 corners and 3 sides. And that's row 3. All right, let's do row 4. And for this project, row 4 is our last row, but of course, you can add as many rows as you want to. All right, so our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, so we'll stitch 2 more, 1 and 2, chain 2, and 3 double crochets in that same chain 2 space, because that's our corner. Chain 2, and then we have 2 chain 2 spaces on the side. So we'll stitch 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, and chain 2. Then we'll repeat that in this next chain 2 space. 3 double crochets, and chain 2. That brings us to our next corner. So we'll stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets in that same chain 2 space. Chain 2, and now we have these 2 chain 2 spaces on this side. So we'll stitch 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, and chain 2. 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and chain 2. So now this brings us to our last corner. So we'll stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets in that same chain 2 space. And chain 2. Now we have our last side. We have 2 of those chain 2 spaces, so we'll stitch 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, and chain 2. And again, we're going to join to our chain 3 with a slip stitch in the 2 double crochets, and then slip stitch in the corner. And if you want to continue on, you can chain 3. If you don't and you're done, we'll tie off, but not just yet. What I want to show you is that the triangle granny is pretty much similar to the square granny. The only difference is we only have 3 corners instead of 4, and we have 3 sides instead of 4 sides. You're still going to gain a chain 2 space on each side for each row because we had 1, then we had 2, and now on this row we have 3. Your corners are done the same, 3 double crochet, chain 2, and 3 double crochet, and of course we're putting 3 double crochets in each of those sides of those chain 2, inside those chain 2 spaces. And so basically you're doing the same if you know how to do a regular granny as the triangle. You just have less corners and less sides, and of course you get the shape of the triangle, and they're lots of fun to make. Now if you want to tie off, you can go ahead, cut your yarn, and tie off to the back. Make sure you use that needle and weave that in. Remember to go through fibers of the yarn and stitches and not holes if you want that to stay put and not come out. And that is the triangle granny. And so making a triangle granny is super easy, and there's lots of fun projects that you can use a triangle granny for. Like I said, blankets, purses, bags, hats, anything, scarves, you can use the triangle granny for. And you can make it as big as you want to. You can continue on with the pattern for as many rows as you want or what's needed for what you're making. And so it's a lot of fun, and I hope you'll have a lot of fun making some triangle grannies.